Good evening, everyone. Welcome to IQI Canada Evening Talks. My name is Yousaf Iqbal, country head for Juwai, IQI Canada. We are back with our popular segment, Maple Mondays, with none other than Mr. Haroon Anwar, our head of international marketing. Hey, Haroon, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Yusuf. How are you? So good to see you. It's been a while. How's
It's,
summer treating you?
it's been a while. Summer is treating actually beautiful. Summer is short in Canada, and whatever we get, I really enjoy it. Because I'm not a winter person still after being in Canada for such a long time. So every time summer comes, I'm very happy. So it's good. We are actually seeing some very very hot days, and a lot of people are saying, it's getting very hot. But personally, I'm really enjoying it.
And Yusuf, this time around, not only literally summer is making it hot, but all the events and situations around us have made the situation extremely hot for many people.
That's that's
Sizzling.
that's that's
See,
very true. It's become
geopolitical situation,
yeah.
inflation, interest rate environment, everything. Sizzling.
That is so true, and it's like it seems like an effect coming up, like a snowball effect coming up, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. But having said that, I think the way now the world is opening up again, it's opened up quite a bit. The traveling has come along and things like that. Some sort of an anticipation, some sort of expectation was there. By the economists, by few people that this is what we could be looking into it. Again, as you said, right, the inflation is very high, and again related to that, other things are going on to bring it down onto that. But you know what? Today, our topic, what I want to talk about, is something a lot of people have been, you know, uh, thinking like, it's probably a shortcut. Probably is an asset class or not. We'll talk about that. But generally, my question to you is that, Harun, with experience, crypto, the word crypto, the cryptocurrency. What is cryptocurrency? So we want to use this session in really, generalizing, talking about what is cryptocurrency, because I think a lot of people don't even understand what is cryptocurrency. So the question to you is that what is cryptocurrency?
Well, thanks, Yusuf. And I'm glad we are talking about this intriguing topic right now, which has become exceedingly popular in the last few years, I would say. Many people didn't even understand the term cryptography. So we use the terminologies like cryptic. Cryptic generally means something you can't easily understand. Cryptography is the art of making things incomprehensible. You make sure that it's so. Originally, the idea behind creation of this, and I won't even call it currency, and we'll come later to that. But
Sure.
Bitcoin, which became the front runner in use of this technology, was based on a very simple concept of using peer-to-peer technology. So typically, when a currency is issued, it's issued by a government. Okay, so there's an issuing authority, and that government, when it issues, it clearly says on its currency notes that it is a legal tender.
That's right.
And a legal tender is a promise by the government that it stands by that currency that it has issued, number one,
Yeah.
that the government's full trust is behind it. And then, of course, depending on the country that has issued, the value of the currency varies. And then you can use that legal tender to pay for all your legal obligations, whether it's your taxes, it's your debt, it's any of those things. So then it becomes an acceptable way for everyone, and you cannot deny it. And if I say, I will sell this thing for 100 Canadian dollars, and I give you that currency in that 100 Canadian dollar shape and form, you have to accept it, right?
That's right.
So that's why when we pay our obligations through a credit card, as an example, the underlying currency is exactly the same. It's just an
True.
IOU that we do through a credit card, that I owe
Yeah.
you this money and that this bank will pay on my behalf to you. But at the end of the day, the underlying currency is consistent. So coming back to this concept of crypto, and I put currency quote unquote, or 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 virtual currency, as some
Yeah.
people started using the terminology there. All these things came about because nobody knew how to define it. Okay? And this, without going into a lot of technical history of how Bitcoin came to forefront, because the original creator of Bitcoin is still a mystery.
Yeah.
But the concept behind that individual's paper, which then later became on, is to say that we can use certain algorithms, and algorithms are simple mathematical well, not simple, complex mathematical formula, which is used to generate a unique number, and then that later on was defined as a token or something else. Now, these unique tokens, using those algorithms, when maintained on a number of machines. So think about it like 100 friends. I'm just simplifying it.
Yeah.
100 friends have 100 computers who all agree to sign up, and they decide to keep track of the issuance. So I create a piece of work, right? Let's call it crypto A. And then everyone on those 100 machines recognizes that I created that crypto A, right? And this is an original piece of work of crypto A that was created. Everyone's machine records it. And
Yeah.
they all are part of this circle of trust or circle of community, decentralized as the terminology is. And then every time another person creates something, all 100 who are part of the community acknowledge that that has been created. Now, every time it trades between those parties, everyone has a record that notes it down that this trade has happened. And many factors made it popular because of A, there was no A centralized authority.
Yeah.
So the ability to counterfeit it or create fraudulent transactions became difficult because 100 people, if two are out of sync, three are out of sync, 97 still have there to say, well, you know what, our copies don't indicate that the one you have is the genuine one. So it became difficult. But the popularity behind that came in because of the ease of purchasing these tokens. So people, when they would purchase, they would actually give up currency,
That's
call it
right. Yeah.
dollars, pounds, sterling, French, to buy those tokens. And then they would trade these tokens. And anonymity behind trading those tokens is what made it very popular. Because behind each token, who was the ownership, was just a digital number, right?
That's right.
So when we traded those two or three different tokens, nobody really knew who was the real owner behind that. And without going, certain segments of the society found that an extremely attractive value proposition. Okay?
True. True.
Now, the other reason why the value of these cryptos, and again, I'm deliberately avoiding the term currency, you'll come to that later, is that it was finite in quality, especially the way Bitcoin was designed. That every single iteration of how you issue that was harder and harder than the previous one because of the way the algorithm is written. And there was a finite number that you could produce, okay, just simply based on the way it is. So that means that every single time you have to issue a new one, the cost of issuing a new one is becoming more and more cost prohibitive. And the finite quantity that's available that can be traded among people who are interested was going to push the price up. So the demand was going to exceed the supply. Simple problem. Okay. So far, so good, right? So now what it does,
Absolutely. Very, very interesting.
it certainly created a lot of other people's interest. They said, hey, if Bitcoin can work, then we can create similar other crypto assets, okay, which is still, I think, a better term than currency,
Yeah. Yeah.
that can be created, bought, purchased, traded, etc. Right? And then you've heard like there are hundreds of different names out there. Ethereum came in,
Stable
Litecoin,
coin, virtual coin.
right? So they all started to sprout literally, and different people, because people suddenly realized, wow, there's a market out there. Okay,
Yeah.
so think of it almost the way I see it. Okay, and this is up for debate. I know, and I really would like to have this debate with other listeners and people in audience and hear their views. So, in my view, the debate is almost like this: that each coin is nothing different than a painter's work, right? A painter creates a work, right?
Yeah.
It is in a shape and form unique. And if someone assigns a certain value to that painting, and then different people can trade that painting, right?
That's right.
But then again, it's purely based on supply and demand. How much a painter's painting is valued. If a painter says, I'm going to produce only 100 paintings, no more, then those 100 paintings, if the supply exceeds the demand, will push up the price.
True. True.
But if I, as a painter, keep mass producing my paintings,
Yeah.
right, even though they're unique, but the people who are interested, they know they can purchase as many as they want.
True. True.
Right?
True.
It's not going to drive the price up as high.
Yeah.
And that's what we see in the currencies. Now, what then happened when the idea caught on among the certain segment of the society of certain benefits on how they could bring cash into these assets, remain anonymous,
Yeah.
trade it for different purposes, and convert it back to cash or for other assets, that the demand started to grow, right?
Yeah.
And initially, the total amount of this was so low that the government practically ignored it. This
True.
was almost on the fringe,
Yeah.
right? As one would say, not even worth the time. It's only when the total value started to hit close to $1 trillion
Yes. Yes.
that it became significant for the governments to start paying attention.
Yeah.
And then the government started talking about, well, what is it that's driving people towards it? Is it the ease of transactions? And they started looking at it in different ways. And without going into, again, a lot of technical details, but then the government started to see some value and saying, hey, we could actually have a central bank backed digital currency as well. It'd be
That's right.
easier to manage. It'd be easier. You don't have to issue currency, coins. All of that paper is a bit of a nuisance right now. So then the government started looking at, hey, maybe conceptually let's look at it. But it's very different than the decentralized structure we are
True.
familiar with.
Yeah.
Okay. So far so good. Nothing too complicated, I hope, for our audience.
Very, 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 very good way of really explaining what crypto is all about.
Now, here's the thing. So, when people heard about it and when people saw the value of crypto creeping up from, let's say, initially it was not even $1,000, then
Yeah.
around 2016, I remember my friends started talking about it. And I'm like,
Okay.
why are you guys interested in it? I mean, you guys have legitimate jobs. Probably, well, if we invested it, it was hovering around $2,000 at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people started talking about it. My son got intrigued. He was at that time 15, okay, and then he got intrigued into it. And I'm like, this is not something which, if people understand, because
True.
again,
Yeah.
who is the issuer? Who's
Yeah.
backing it?
Yeah.
Is there a prospectus? Is there a clear commitment, legal documentation?
No
Nothing, not
legal
exactly.
documentation.
I mean, is it just something, people have a mutual, it's almost like trading seashells, right?
That's right.
You could pick
That's
it
right.
up and start trading in it. So
Yeah.
that's what it was. But again, it got a lot of interest. So now what happens is when a lot of people get excited about something, they push up the price. And then
That's
we
right.
saw the price increase from $2,000 to $8,000 to $20,000. And then, it from 20 in 12 months, Yusuf, can you believe, from 20 went to $60,000?
That's right. Unbelievable. All of a sudden,
I
within one
mean,
year's
I,
time.
I was just like flabbergasted, like literally dumbfounded. And I was like, what's going on, what's
Yeah.
driving this craziness. And not only for Bitcoin, I'm using Bitcoin as a reference currency because, or reference token. And
Startup.
again,
Yeah.
apologize for calling it a currency. It's not really a
Yeah.
currency, it's just the terminology is a bit, uh, because it's like 40-50% of the total market cap,
Yes. That's right.
followed by Ethereum and other currencies. So that's what
True.
was driving. And
True.
then we suddenly have seen in the last 12 months again from those heights, it's
Gone
taken
down.
a nosedive, now hovering to around 20,000 or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't track it on a daily basis, so I may be off by a few points, but the general trend is it went up 3 times and is back
Back
to its
down on
original.
that.
So what's happening? Who's driving it? Who's playing the market? But here's the sad part: if you are not an astute investor and you just followed the trend and you jumped
Yes.
onto the bandwagon, not knowing, not understanding, then you could get burnt badly.
I totally agree with you. I mean, as you said, it's something which was very, very, fluctuation wise, starting at $2,000 or $1,000, going all to $6,000, coming down. And what you right now correctly mentioned, and that brings me to my other question, is that people who are just following the bandwagon is also something related to speculative investment or something which you probably don't understand, but it's just like, as you said, your friends or people start looking at it and said, oh, wow, you know what, if I bought it at $2,000, it went to 6,000, but not really understanding the logic behind on that. So, question again, or, your comments on that, when it comes to investment part of it, what is the criteria people should be looking at it? Is it like, for example, if today I said, I've got $5,000, and depending on what my net worth is, for example, I say, okay, I've got $5,000. What should I do? I don't want. I know real estate is going to be expensive for me. Maybe gold or silver. You know what? I spoke to a friend, invest into crypto. Does that make sense?
Yusuf, you have asked not only a very good question, but a very pertinent question. Okay, so when we talk about choosing investments, it starts with understanding the investor. Okay, so let's say you and I are investors, we need to understand ourselves first.
That's right.
What is our personal financial situation? What is our immediate requirement? What is our short-term requirement? What is because it varies from an individual to an individual.
True. True.
Okay, and it's so the importance of understanding the investor and what their personal situation is key to determining which investment is suitable for them or not.
True.
Okay. Now let's look at that. So somebody who is 25 and somebody who's 50.
Yeah.
Somebody who's 25 and making $100,000 and someone who's 50 and making $100,000. Now, technically, both are making $100,000, but one has more time to their side than the other person.
Yeah.
So again, it varies. Then, secondly, the person at 50 may have more financial responsibilities tied to them than someone who's at the age of 25. So, understanding the investor, key in deciding which investment is appropriate. Now, if you have, like you said, $5,000 burning a hole in your pocket, okay, and you need to do something with it. Then again, the question becomes: is it that you want to use the $5,000 as something for entertainment purposes, like where you're
Yeah.
saying, okay, I'm going to just speculatively throw it at this
True.
investment. It may go from $5,000 to $15,000 over the next 1 year or so, or it may tank to $1,000.
Yeah.
And because this $5,000 is a small component for me, depending on the individual you're talking about, it wouldn't bother me if $5,000 becomes $1,000 of 15. Great, it doesn't become 15. It comes to and I know a lot of people who fall into that category.
That's right. Yeah.
So for those individuals, yeah, it's speculative by nature. Because A, they don't understand the basic dynamics of this investment. Majority doesn't.
Yeah.
They've only heard and seen the trends. See, if you ask somebody, I would say majority, say, how does this currency work? Or how does this, okay, forget the word currency, asset class work.
How does that
Crypto
process?
asset
Yeah.
class. Okay? Because it's not a currency, it's not a legal tender. And the most of your tax authorities in different jurisdictions treat them as security, so there are capital gains taxes to it.
Yeah.
And you are expected to declare it, by the way. Okay?
True. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so it's not something that you should say, oh, it's because it's anonymous, I don't have to declare it. So
Yeah.
you technically have to declare it. But again, the point what I'm trying to make it is if it's burning a hole in your pocket and you throw it out there and hope that your investment carries with the trend, then yes, of course, that's okay, great. But
Yeah.
if it's a downside, hey, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
And so that's understandable. Overall investment asset classes I would recommend is for people to be consistent. Okay. Uh, we have heard the story, where slow and steady wins the race.
That's
So
right.
if you are like most individuals who whether they are businessmen, entrepreneurs, or salaried working class, by and large, the income stream has a steady pattern, by and large,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you have a steady pattern and if you manage your expenses well, then you will always scrape 10 odd percent of, at least 10 odd percent of your you put away.
Mhm.
Now, what kind of assets should you put in? A, you can put it in, like living in your home is not an asset, that's a requirement.
True.
So even
True.
though it is an asset in a way, your own living, but it is an asset that you use to live, right? So the
Yeah.
other asset would be where you would maybe rent a house,
Yeah.
rent out a house. Sorry, I
That's
said
right.
rent
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
a house. So that's a passive investment.
Yeah.
You can put your money into mutual funds, passive investment. You can have an active investment where some people use that money into Airbnb type properties,
Yeah.
active manage it themselves. And then the final stage is just what we call speculative investments.
Yeah.
It goes up, it goes up, it crashes, it crashes. I personally do not subscribe to that view that people should use that money unless they have a lot of money. So losing $5,000 to someone who has $1 million in his cash or her cash account is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
different than somebody who has $10,000 or $100,000 even in their cash account. Okay? So
Absolutely correct. Yeah.
it's a
Go ahead,
question of
please.
perspective.
Yeah. No, the speculative part, I 100% agree with you. You know what? Very, very, very well defined the class of assets, how people should be investing into it. The speculative part, and this is something which as advisors at IQI, we always make sure that when we talk to our clients, for example, a lot of time people will invest into something that they're going to get a handover of a pre-construction. And again, I'm just relating it to the real estate part of it. Being invested is that we're buying a pre-construction project today, hoping that in 2 years' time I'll sell it on an assignment and things like. One thing which we always advise, again, when talking about real estate, is that please do not buy it upon speculation. You just don't know how things would turn out to be. So I always have this question to my investors, again, looking at their portfolio, looking at what is available in terms of what they want to invest in, that are you able to close this property, and not just buy it on speculation that you'll be doing, or any other investment for that matter of fact on that. So 100% agreed. The speculation is something which we should not encash on it. But it brings back to certain things, Haroon, very well you were talking about the way crypto has been going up and down. I would like to, emphasize a little bit about the assets when we talk about in terms of assets again, the real estate by itself. Uh, I need your thoughts on that. Have you seen that? Yes, we've seen some cyclic adjustment to real estate, but have you seen it from 2,000 to $70,000 and then back down on it?
So, so as a person who has spent 30 odd years in banking and financial industry, Um, I can tell you that banks, when they give financing against different asset classes, they give a certain level of margin, right?
Yeah,
Because they expect the values, underlying values to change.
true.
So real estate has historically been, especially residential real estate, been very stable. Okay. Yes, prices do move up and down, but they go up and down over a period of 1 to 2 years, and a massive movement is 5 to 10%. Right?
Yeah,
It's considered a massive movement.
true.
2 to 5% is not even considered a movement. It's normal, right?
That's true. That's true.
So it bounces back. But the volatility that we see in crypto assets, now if you're talking about Bitcoin as the leading front-running asset,
Yeah,
and it drops in 1 year, two-third in value.
true.
Okay, so really, is it something that can be considered as a stable investment? It can bounce back. I mean,
Yeah,
but no one is going to take a position. The institutional investors are coming in and talking about it. But then again, as a percentage of their overall portfolio, this is 1% or less for
yeah,
institutional investors. And I would personally put my view that it's the institutional investors that have caused this big, massive movement.
that's
Okay,
true.
because they drove up the price, and when they
That's
exited, it
true.
came down crashing. Retail
That's
investors
true.
individually, they don't have the ability to bring these kind of massive swings.
Yep, yep. Mm-mm.
There's no way for me to prove it, but I am pretty convinced it's the institutional investors and their timing to come into this and then exit that has caused this massive swing to happen
Yeah. Mm,
of retail
maybe.
investors.
No, no, that's very true. We are live with Haroon, and again, for people to understand this, we like to give a disclosure here. We are not, advising you anything about it. That we're just giving you a general overview about what crypto is and things like that. But few things which you rightly mentioned, and I must, again go back and say about is that look at in terms of the real estate or the assets. And one thing I always like to put up is always a map showing that the number of population growing up in the world as compared to the land in the world. So obviously, more population coming up, but the land is not growing at the same time. So there's always the supply and demand part of it, which comes along with that. And we will always see some cyclic adjustment when it comes to the asset class. And the reason I want to say is that I want to quote here our chief economist Sean Saeed, and not today, but when I met him in 2015. So he's always said, what, always have some tangible assets in your hand. So, and he always talks in all of our shows as well. He says, what tangible assets? Let's talk about gold, silver, real estate. That's what you should have it in your hands on that. So, again, this again a session, very interesting session, Haroon. Anything else you want to add to
So
it,
just
Haroon? Yeah,
building on Sean's point, okay, I am also in agreement that we should have tangible assets. But as we have seen and learned, and this has just happened as we saw events in Ukraine, right?
yeah, yeah.
You can't take real estate with you, okay?
That's true. True.
Okay, and in the environment like this, you can't even liquidate it.
Agreed. Agreed.
Okay. So if you see then where people have been able to is contrary to what we have been talking about are their assets in crypto
Yeah.
because they are liquid, they were easy to move, they're digital, they
True.
are universally accepted.
Yes.
Okay? So there's a contrarian view right there. And then a lot of these people who fled the country or other people or nationalities who are affected by it have purchased real estate in countries which are more crypto friendly.
Yeah.
There are a few, and they
Yeah.
purchase real estate there using these liquid assets.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
so to your point, and we're not giving investment advice. As I said, different investors have different situations. They each need to consult and understand with professionals what's more suitable for them and what's not. But having said that, each asset class, whether it's real estate, gold, stocks, equities, bonds, they each have the right matching with the right investor. And there's a reason they exist. There's a reason that crypto assets started to hit the market cap of $1 trillion because it appealed to a certain type of investor. And one could argue, in other way, that in certain situations, for certain type of investors, it may turn out to be useful for them.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Haroon. Really appreciate it. Another amazing,
Thank you.
informative session. I always look forward for this session. And so does our audience as well. I always say that, audience, if you're interested in any of the topics you would like to talk about it, do let us know in your comments, and we'll make sure that we'll try to whatever knowledge we have, whatever information we got, and of course, from Haroon's side, from our side, we'd like to give you some information, some sharing, and again, sessions like these, Haroon, thank you so much. I get a lot of feedback from the people that they look forward for these sessions because we have touched on so many topics on. So thank you very much, Haroon, for that.
You're most welcome, and thank you for having me on your show.
Take care, everybody. Bye bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye.